Welcome back to this session of integrated marketing communication. After visiting the element of effectiveness of communication, let us look into the communication process. Many a times we do not tend to talk about the communication process because it is so much into our lives, it happens with us. So, what to talk about communication process actually? And if you will look into the picture associated with the process, it's such a common thing. You will just Google that and you'll type communication process, and the picture which I am going to show you here, it will appear in front of you. And there is a sender and a receiver, and there is a whole story around that basically. So you would wonder, what's so special about it? There are so many books which talk about this. There is so much of text associated with that, and it's very fundamental to us. But let us look at this with reference to whatever we have been building upon in due course of time. And since we are talking about effective communication, since we are talking about the impact of communication, there are several elements of how communication gets lost and gets distorted. And remember, I think 2 sessions back we talked about that there is a specific reason of cost associated with, if a communication goes waste, then how to recover that cost, plus that lost communication has actually contributed into the less of, I should say, positioning or lesser establishment of positioning, I should say, in the minds of customer. It is not, the product is not positioned so effectively in the minds of the customer. We have seen that in many cases, where customer wonders, he knows the name, knows the product, but still image does not come there. It has happened with many two-wheelers. I would not name them time and again. We talked about few of them earlier as well. And it has happened with several food products. It has happened with a detergent powder, long back, if I remember. And you can just surf about those. So that was just because the positioning which was supposed to be there could not come up. And that is where the relevance of this process comes in. So sender sends a message, and we talked about words and pictures, storyboard, emphasis and projection, those kind of things. So he crafts a message, and it, through a media, it gets to the receiver. Now this will become interesting actually. In due course of time, not just because of media, but because of the effectiveness of the message itself, the words which we used, the non-focused interconnectedness of those words, inability of those words of not generating an associative chord, not supporting in priming us towards something, not having an element of rhyme. So because of that, then lots of media clutter, which we will talk about at length in due course of time. So lots of media clutter, lots of comparison, lots of other comparative messages, lots of intensity from all the sides, and every 30 seconds or so you are getting something in front of you. So that particular message gets distorted, a part of it at least gets lost somewhere. And not just, just to mention here that our memory has a specific retention power also. Many a times we deliberately want to lose upon such kind of messages, because at that particular time we do not need that particular product, or we just do not want that around us, or we are watching one of our favorite programs and it is an intruder from some side, and we just do not want to remember that intruder basically somehow. Many reasons, we will keep on talking about those, and that kind of wherein, so noise is the representation of all the distortions which get in the way of our message reaching effectively to the receiver. Noise can also be because of the interpretation which our receiver might have, because of different perspective he may carry in about something, and so on. Just it's such a, there is a beautiful article again by Daniel Kahneman called as Noise, and you must read that. It's a beautiful article which elaborates upon how distortions come in, although it is with a different kind of a context, not specifically with in relation to advertising. It talks about how two salespeople from the same organization selling the same kind of a product might end up selling it differently to the same customer somehow, if I remember correctly. But it is an interesting article, you must read that, and that will definitely give you a very fine idea of a perspective of noise. And then it reaches the receiver, and receiver responds to it. But response is a function of what? Message. And that comes back to you in terms of it did well or it did not, or it partially did well. But most of the times it partially did well on a scale, on a on a degree. And now what to do? How much effective it was? What kind of a response did it generate? Or what you should do now? Should you emphasize upon that particular kind of a thing basically? Should you strengthen it somehow? Should you go for further media segregation and choices? Should you recast, recraft? What? Should you use some other poetry? You watch very interesting advertisements by Cadbury's and you would realize some beautiful lyrics have been used there, some beautiful storyboards have been used there. There are several other advertisements also, but just go to Cadbury's and you will realize, and just Google for some most favorite advertisements or so on, and you would realize that what kind of response they would have generated, kind of. So, just remember this picture, keep this in mind, this communication process, and I will come back to this while emphasizing on several kinds of elements to elaborate few important things why we should have a close eye on such kind of a relationship as projected in front of you. You see, what we just saw in that particular picture, the missing chord, it looks simple, but missing chord is reflexivity. And just to show you once again, you see, is sender the intense part of the receiver's thought process? How well I can be deeply associated with the thoughts of the receiver I am targeting. For example, I am projecting a toy for a child. Can I think the way a child thinks actually? For example, I am projecting something for a youth. I am selling a course to that youth. I am inviting that youth to a university or a college. Can I be part of his dreams? Can I think of that? For example, there are several movies released. The clippings they show are sort of an advertisement about what the movie carries. That particular scene, does it generate a particular chord of invitation? So, if I am deciding upon a storyboard to reach to the receiver, am I thinking the way the receiver thinks? For example, I am targeting a homemaker whose life is engrossed with whatever she passionately wants to do for her home, for her children, for her husband, for her in-laws or whatsoever. And I am targeting her with something, for example, I am telling her to take care of herself. I am talking about her health actually. Remember that? A working woman, wherein she sort of misses on taking care of her own health actually. And this food supplement, they say that you should take care of your health. Remember that, which food supplement it is? Search for that. And you would realize that this sender started thinking the way that woman thinks about. That woman is the target actually, that woman is the receiver. And that is where reflexive perspective comes in. Let us elaborate this a bit more and then you would realize. You see, reflexivity has lot to do with as far as reflection goes. Reflexivity wherein you think in the same language your receiver thinks actually. And when I say language, I am talking of the interpretation of the words, the perspective associated with that language and so on. What kind of words would I use? Ye dil mange more. I have talked about this earlier. Ye dil mange more, kind of. What would he like to hear actually? Ye dil mange more, kind of. So you see, I am talking to someone, I am thinking the way that person thinks. Pepsi thi, pee gaya, kind of. You remember that advertisement? That's interesting. Thanda matlab Coca-Cola. I have talked about this earlier also. And there are so many. It's as I said, it's a mesmerizing world. You just Google, you keep on surfing and you will keep on finding out whatever we are talking here. And I want you to do that, because whosoever is presently watching this video, I want that person to go for surfing on several clippings right now. Just stop this video and go to the surfing and then start feeling on that the sender wanted to create a reflexive perspective or generate a reflexive chord with you. Try and associate yourself with a particular kind of a message. Imagine if he has touched you, that is what reflexivity is, because he has focused upon your socio-cultural linguistic perspective. And he has kept or she has kept herself this side and looked upon the whole scenario from this side, then gone to that side and wrote that advertisement actually, and then created a storyboard, created a beautiful song around it, created a narrative around it. Narrow lag, Asian Paints, and so on, So that is where reflexivity comes in. It's a large subject. It's a very elaborate concept, but the crux of it is that all human beings are associated with each other through values and emotions. Language propels, and I am not saying only words, sometimes just expressions in the form of language expresses those, and then comes a reflection between two, and this reflection actually propels this whole communication process. If there is no reflexivity associated, then it would be a message which would go through media, distorted by noise, reach there, might affect, might not affect. It would be a trial and error kind of a thing. If you want to get out of this trial and error, believe me, you must have that perspective of being there and writing for yourself, or understanding how the other person thinks. Now let us understand reflexivity with some reflections. Incredible India, remember that, just surf it, you will realize how different types of I has been written, I as in India has been written, and how Incredible India campaign touched the chord, the minds of people all around, directly impacting the tourism as far as the Indian, tourism growth goes. And it's a whole lot of a narrative, and thanks to the people associated with that. प्यार की भाषा दावत बासमती राइस. Basmati rice is प्यार की भाषा? Really? Yes, it is. When you eat together, it creates. And I told you last time, product which are less differentiable, not so easily differentiable, and you want to charge a premium on those products, communication makes a difference, because communication, categorizes, wherein it belongs to a premium kind of level basically, and whosoever wants to consume that. Pyar ki bhasha. It's a beautiful campaign, just look into it. Dulux red color. I remember, if you allow me to say, Boman Irani and Shahid Kapoor in that advertisement, and that was good, basically he was wondering about the kind of red color he would be using on the wall, and that particular red color, how to decide on that red color. There are different kinds of red colors, but that very specific red color, and Dulux wants to tell you that they have that red color, because that is the only red color you like actually, and Dulux emphasized upon that. Beautiful advertisement, and Daag Achhe Hain campaign, we all know, it was such a success. Daag Achhe Hain. You remember these two kids going to school, and this girl falls in a small, and it's a day to day life thing basically. You go to school, you go anywhere, you have so many ditches all around, there's so many potholes all around basically, and this little girl basically incidentally falls there, and she is so dejected, wearing this stark beautiful uniform, going to school in the morning. You must remember your school days, definitely. You remember those days wherein we were so cautious about, reaching there with all the tidiness, because teacher used to appreciate us, and who amongst us doesn't feel that appreciation till date, all of us remember that appreciation given to us by some teacher. So this girl falls there and she feels dejected, and this elder brother, loving elder brother, he hits the pothole and he says, you see, I have punished this pothole, and he also gets dirty, and they come back home, and mother says Daag Achhe Hain, because they actually propelled those emotions in this is love and affection amongst these two children. So beautiful kind of storyboard, and that is where reflection comes in. The person who, or the team of people who would have conceived this, definitely they would have thought about the media they would be using for, taking this to the minds of people. But just this example tells us how noise is reduced through reflection, through reflexivity, experiencing the emotions associated with Daag Achhe. That's beautiful. Kuch din to guzariye Gujarat mein, Mr. Amitabh Bachchan again. And you see, at least for me, I never thought of Gujarat the way that campaign let me see Gujarat as a tourist destination. Every specific highlight which could be projected about Gujarat, different places, different spots with such a beauty, such a grace. Kuch din to guzariye. No, he says kuch din to guzariye Gujarat mein. That is precisely what he says. And a beautiful campaign. And that definitely took Gujarat tourism to a different kind of a trajectory, wherein people started, you see, domestic tourism in India, as you all know, has come a long way. Earlier, people used to go to different states because of specific reasons, visiting their near and dear ones and some places of importance, but just to go around, to roam around, Many states now they are doing exceptionally well. Kerala, for example, has done tremendously well. God's own country. Oh, oh my God! It's a beautiful, beautiful thing basically. God's own country. You know, in the backwaters, a boat is sailing, and you imagine sitting on that boat, and imagining, you know, kind of the calm and the peace. That is what they saw. So and then tourism advertisements definitely, you know, give you a different kind of elevation, mental elevation, because they take you to a different kind of a world, even if you have not, you know, you are not foreseeing to go there, and that is how it goes. And you know, Rajasthan, kuch aisa dikha. That was tremendous campaign. That was wonderful. And just now I want you to go there and just watch. That this was an interesting, you know, storyboard wherein kind of, you know, these people, they are lost somewhere in desert, and these two brothers are coming on a long motorcycle of 3 wheels basically. Now that was beautiful. Someone would have noticed that. Someone would have noticed this way of life there in Rajasthan, and someone would have actually, you know, saw someone being lost in Rajasthan somewhere, and then someone comes to help you on a very innovative product they are managing within that space basically, and you know, these people, they are rescued or taken somewhere. So that was also wonderful. And this is one of my favorites, Aerial Share the Load campaign. This working woman comes home and her father is visiting her, and late evening he watches her daughter coming home to her family, you know, her young kid asking for, "Mama, I have not done my homework," or whatsoever, I do not remember exactly, but just watch that. And her husband, you know, watching TV, asking for food, kind of, "I am waiting for you for so long." And she has also gone to office, she is tired, but she is energetic, she is not winking an eye, she is not saying that I can't do anything at this moment. But her father, whose finger she held in her youngest of the age, is watching her as that very same child, and he says, "My daughter has grown up. Now she is taking care of so many things, her own child. But for father, she is still that young child actually. But why she has to do everything?" And suddenly he realizes that male members of the family are involved somewhere in this kind of thing. Basically, they groom two kinds of children differently basically, because girls are supposed to take care of everything despite of the fact that they are ahead of males in career many a times. This advertisement, this storyboard, इतने साल गलत किया है, अब कुछ सही करके जाऊं, kind of. So he writes a letter to his daughter that, you know, I'm going back home, and now onwards I'll try to change myself and I'll start helping your mother. Although that storyboard, you know, that advertisement shows wherein this mother is surprised, you know, what has happened to this man after so many years of his marriage, their marriage. Now he is actively participating in, you know. So that perspective actually, that is where reflexivity comes in. So I think I must have elaborated my point up till now. Just give you a recall here. So this, if you have that kind of a reflexivity in your mind, you stand there and think about what you are about to do in terms of effective communication from that side, then your encoding would be strong, because your message would carry that message, that element. And then definitely you because you have been there at that side, so you know that how you yourself would reach there, that is the media, the choice of media. And then because you have written that for yourself being there, so decoding would be as good as encoding, and there would not be any distortion, and reception would be very, very high, and it would generate the response it should be, and feedback would be intense. Now you see, watch those advertisements which have been running for long time, internet or television or newspapers, whichever way, and then you would realize what I am trying to say. Watch those advertisements also which might not have run for that long, but would have created a memory and intense effect during that time. In both the cases, the effect was reached, the intensity was achieved, and that is what how this communication process gets intensified through reflexivity. So, this is basically what we are concluding as far as achieving effectiveness of a communication process. I would strongly recommend at this juncture that read some good articles on reflexivity. One of my favorite authors is Mats Elvisen, who has written on reflexivity with research perspective, but he has elaborated reflexivity at a larger level. And there are several lighter articles written on this subject basically. But a method which I would strongly recommend at this moment to enhance reflexivity in your mind while thinking about a communication and reducing the distortion of that communication, you just follow a mother when she is taking care of her young child of 4 or 5 years of age, whatsoever kind of slightly younger age, an early school going age, or before that or just after that. Just follow her or video record her for 1 hour or so. Every one of you would be related to some of these mothers, and then just video record her how she is taking care of, and try and look at when she is not even looking at the child and she understands what child would ask for, and without looking at the child she says something which creates a particular effect on the child, and look at the way she communicates with her and you will immediately realize what I am talking about as far as the reflexivity goes. If this does not suit you, you may go to a class which is which a teacher is conducting for very young kids, and she is having 30, 40, 50 kids in front of her, and look at her how she is communicating with each of the child with the same intensity, with the same kind of an effect, almost similar if not same, and you would again get a feel of reflexivity which we are talking about. And in case of adults, if you can go to some small group of soldiers led by their commander, and they are sort of on a drill, and then try to see that how this person is communicating with his troops basically, because he is also a soldier. So, his message is very clear and understood the same way he wants them to understand. Again, a reflection of reflexivity. There are several examples of such sort which we find all around us. Try to catch those examples, then further resonate that with your understanding of advertisements or messages I have just mentioned, and try to gather the perspective which I am trying to develop amongst you. And this is the major takeaway of this session. Goodbye for now. Thank you. See you next time.